Hello, and welcome to another Story Explained lore video. Today we'll be looking into the story of Outlast 2 and a touch of the Murkoff account comics. However, be warned, there are story elements and subject matter in this video that some may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. And welcome to the Lorbatory. Light in the sky, the sound of wings, the earth trembling beneath your feet. You came here looking for a story. You found revelation. The story begins with a helicopter flying over Arizona mountains, where freelance reporters Blake and Lynn Langerman investigate a mysterious discovery. A young pregnant girl known as Jane Doe was found dead after committing suicide in a hospital. Blake awakens from a nightmare involving Jessica Gray, an old school friend, and recounts the dream to Lynn. Their initial conversation is interrupted by a large noise and a blinding flash that knocks the chopper out of the sky. They crash land, and Blake wakes in a Catholic school called St. Sybil, where he encounters a frightening vision of blood and a young girl before regaining consciousness at the wreckage of their helicopter, with no sign of Lynn. Upon awakening, Blake discovers the pilot has been gruesomely skinned and nailed to a cross, an ominous sign of the horrors to come. As he pushes forward, he senses an eerie church nearby and navigates towards the village, where villagers appear armed but eerily non-hostile. This peace shattered when Blake encounters Martha, the martyr of the cult, an aggressive figure who embodies the twisted zealotry that permeates Temple Gate. Blake's tension escalates when he sees Lynn escaping through a window, prompting him to chase after her and confront the harsh realities of the cult's belief. Blake learns that the cult is led by Sullivan Noth, who identifies himself as a modern Ezekiel, a prophetic figure resulting from twisted belief. Noth's influence drives villagers to violent fanaticism, which deeply pervades the community. Blake overhears cultists discussing Lynn's pregnancy and discovers that she is carrying a child.
The first person who touches me loses their eyes. God, no! God, no!
God wants the child. God wants the child.
As he makes his way through the village, Blake receives a glimpse into the minds of the cultists, who recite eerie prayers and scriptures, indicative of their complete subservience to Noth. After a series of harrowing encounters, Blake falls down a cliff after having a vision. This is where he meets Ethan, a man who has been excommunicated from the cult. Ethan reveals the grim reality of his own depravity. He refuses to surrender his daughter, Annalise, to Sullivan Noth, fearing for her life. Ethan explains that Noth's intentions are sinister. He believes that Noth wants to take Annalise and violate her, but also impregnate her, in a twisted belief that the child would be part of his prophetic vision. Noth, driven by his own delusions, intends to kill the unborn child to eliminate the possibility of an antichrist that he fears would arise from his followers. This horrifying revelation is a profound moment for Blake, who recognizes the danger delusions play. The depths of Ethan's desperation are evident. He knows that surrendering his daughter equates to a death sentence, and his love drives him to fight against Noth's monstrous desires. Now, remember the reason we came here, Jane Doe. This was actually Ethan's daughter, Annalise, and during their tense exchange, Ethan asks Blake if his daughter is okay, knowing deep down that Annalise is dead, yet not wanting to break Ethan's heart. Blake lies and assures him that she is safe.
Jane Doe.
Sorry?
Your daughter. She was 8 months pregnant, blonde hair, cut like a boy's.
Yeah. What do you know? You seen her?
It's why we came here.
Is she all right? Please, Mister, just tell me she's okay.
She's fine.
Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. And God bless you.
This moment reveals the depth of human connection in times of despair. Ethan's simple hope for his daughter's well-being contrasts starkly with the dark reality around them. Ethan's refusal to hand over Annalise showcased the length a father will go to protect his child. Blake's own protective instincts for Lynn and emphasizing the universal theme of love amidst chaos. Ethan helps Blake find refuge, but tragedy strikes as Martha discovers them, leading to Ethan's brutal death. While attempting to protect Blake, this grim scene underscores the brutality the cult employs to enforce loyalty and control. After fleeing, Blake reaches the church and encounters Josiah, who has been tortured and bears the mark of betrayal. Josiah begs Blake for release before Mary, his wife, is brought in for torment. But before Blake can do anything, he hides. This is one of the few times you actually see, I think one of two times you actually see Papa Noth in the entire game. And this scene is terrifying. As Josiah is begging and pleading, they torture his wife, stretching her limbs on the brink of breaking.
Stop! Oh, God, please!
The cultists uncover Josiah's betrayal, and despite his pleas, he is killed. And shortly after, so is his wife. Leaving Blake to grapple with the despair around him. Blake leaves the church, and with this information, Blake decides to head towards the mines to rescue Lynn. Blake proceeds to cross a beam to get to the other side and is encountered by a swarm of locusts. Now, I've read that some people believe this could be something Wall Rider related, but I do believe this is just in Blake's head. Later in the game, you can kind of see that he begins to see the plagues, the raining of blood, the locusts, etc. After falling down, he regains consciousness. He is captured by Laird and Nick, a giant mute and a small man that rides upon him. He captures his video camera and starts to proclaim, like, of course, a modern time prophet would use a camera, not a book.
Is it a camera? A wreckage? Of course. How could I not see it? A modern Christ would use a camera, not a book. This is our gospel. How could I not have known?
Shortly after this, they proceed to nail Blake to a cross, which has lots of symbolism, but we won't get into that. He escapes and retrieves his video camera, only to be caught again, but this time they bury him alive.
Oh, resurrection!
He eventually escapes this as well. Continuing to traverse down to the mines, Blake eventually finds a rope and proceeds to climb down. He is then again interrupted by Laird and Nick. However, the skull this time pushed them both down. They all proceed to die in the fall, except Blake.
Hey! Hey! No! No, goddamn you!
He eventually makes it to the mines where it's raining blood. And just like the locust, this is another plague. 2 of the 7 plagues that have happened so far. Eventually, while being chased by Val and her heretics, he makes it into the mines. In the distance, he hears Lynn's screams as she begins to struggle to escape from the heretics. Captured yet again by Val, Blake faces a harrowing situation as Val tries to assault him. But again, Blake has another vision. This time he's with Jessica. They begin holding hands walking the halls of the school, and eventually are found by Father Loudermilch. Now, you may have seen him in the game without knowing. As you roam through the halls in your visions, you're chased by a demon who is eerily similar to Loudermilch. He even has the same birthmark on his head. This is how Blake sees him, as a monster, a demon. He eventually tells Blake he should go, he should leave. Jessica begs him to stay, not wanting to be alone with him. Father Loudermilch eventually pushes Blake out and stays with Jessica. It's during this moment we realize that Jessica didn't commit suicide, which we were led to believe the entire game. Shortly after leaving, Blake hears screams of Jessica. He runs to save her, but what he finds is Jessica's dead body on the stairs and Father Loudermilch standing above him. Jessica died trying to escape the assault of Father Loudermilch. Just as hope seems lost, he witnesses the heretics' internal conflict with the cult, leading to their violent struggles, which highlight the collapse of moral order amidst blind zealotry. During these moments, Blake confronts the terrifying realization that what he perceives as reality may be deeply influenced by the psychological strain and the manipulation signals emitted from the cult's towers. A cave-in begins to happen, which help Blake and Lynn escape the mines. They eventually arrive back at the church, the same church where Josiah was killed. Lynn eventually gives birth, but dies. Blake expects a miraculous event, but the reality is grim. Shortly after, revealing the child is not real.
There's nothing there.
Oh, Jesus, God! Lynn!
Just a product of their traumas and signals. This moment embodies the tragic loss of innocence and hope. With the baby being born, Noth's final act is to slit his own throat, surrendering to madness and despair, showcasing his delusion of serving a divine purpose while allowing chaos to engulf the community. After Noth's death, Blake is engulfed with chaos that follows, plagued by visions of Jessica and visceral aftermath of the cult's delusions, culminating in mass suicides driven by Noth's manipulation. Blake's journey reflects profound themes of trauma, guilt, and the psychological effects of exposure to oppressive ideologies, demonstrating how quickly humanity can erode under the weight of dogma. His descent into madness hints at the effects of the signals emitted by the cult's towers: hallucinations, disorientation, and crushing guilt about Jessica's fate intertwined, affecting his perception of reality throughout his ordeal. The big what if? What if he stayed? What if he was faster? Would she still be alive? Throughout the game, the psychological attacks and exposure to the cult signal led to the phantom pregnancies, creating a surreal narrative about the implications of mental trauma. Blake's visions of a child manifest the guilt he feels for Jessica's death, while also clashing with his current belief that he must protect Lynn's supposed child. This phantasm drives him deeper into paranoia. Likewise, the cult believes in giving birth to an antichrist, showcasing how ideology can spiral into destructive quests. Blake's mental age seems to regress, causing him to confuse his protective instincts for Jessica with his reality surrounding Lynn, portraying how unresolved trauma can distort perception. Now, let's take a small dive into the Murkoff account comics. a series that elaborates not only on the consequences of Murkoff's actions, but also deepens our understanding of the events surrounding Outlast 2. Now, we're only going to take a few moments of the comics that really kind of help you understand the aftermath of what happened after this story. In the comics, we meet Paul Marion and Pauline Glink, who work for Murkoff's litigation department, essentially acting as the cleanup crew for Murkoff's dark and twisted secrets. Their primary responsibility involves silencing potential whistleblowers and controlling the narrative surrounding the corporation's controversial activities. Paul's storyline is particularly telling as he becomes fixated on the case of a young pregnant girl known as Jane Doe, whose tragic plight is intricately linked to the events unfolding in Temple Gate. The comics portray Jane as a victim of Murkoff's inhumane experiments, exposing the psychological and physical torment she endures. After encountering horrifying visions and a violent attack from the cultists, Paul discovers Jane's delusions stem from exposure to the morphogenic engine, a horrifying manifestation of Murkoff's influence, and a clearer narrative tie-in to the cult's methodology in Outlast 2. Upon receiving a cryptic note from Simon Peacock, a character also tied to Murkoff's broader misdeeds, Paul is compelled to investigate the coordinates mentioned in the document. This leads him directly to the heart of the cult's operations, where he discovers a web of violence, fanaticism, and systematic abuse. As Paul and Pauline piece together the shocking realities, they slowly realize the extent of the psychological manipulation inflicted on the cult members and their communities. Jane Doe's brain scans reveal anomalies consistent with the corrupt practices of Murkoff, solidifying their link to the cult's dark deeds. Importantly, as they navigate these treacherous encounters, they stumble upon Blake, now catatonic after surviving the events at Temple Gate. The discovery of Blake hints at the lingering effects of Murkoff's experiments, leaving us questioning whether he will ultimately become a pawn in their ongoing schemes. Paul's role becomes one of moral obligation as he grapples with the consequences of Murkoff's destructive legacy. His reflections on the horrors faced by Blake and the cult members emphasize that the terror instigated by Murkoff is far from over, suggesting that future grotesque experiments loom on the horizon. Will Blake rise from this catatonic state, or will he remain trapped in Murkoff's clutches? Unfortunately, that remains unanswered, as a culmination of their actions reverberates throughout the storyline, leaving an air of suspense and dread for what lies ahead. Well, that brings our story to an end. Outlast 2, a game that delves into the human condition through horror, exploring trauma, belief, and the repercussions of fear-driven ideologies. If this breakdown affected you as profoundly as the game itself, drop a like, hit subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. What aspect of Outlast 2 resonated with you most? Thank you for joining me on this deep and dark journey through the reality of Temple Gate and the horrific paths of Outlast 2. And remember, keep your batteries charged and keep the camera rolling.